Hey guys, good morning. It's very early and we're ready to leave for the boat back to the Netherlands. Now, why is it early? Well, because the boat leaves early. So we stayed in a campground very close to Harwich, so it's only like a 7 or 10 minute drive to the boat. So join us for today's episode of Behind Closed Doors, the way back to the Netherlands. Okay, waiting for boarding the boat. This is the part that I actually hate. We're always here pretty early and then you still have to wait. But hey, that's life. Let's get into the belly of the beast. Ha ha ha! Hey guys, and welcome on the Stena line Britannica. We're on our way back home, and this was an interesting week because this was the week that we tested the Sony A9 camera. Does it live up to its reputation? Are there any problems? And what do I think about it? So, in the next scenes, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I think about the A9 from Sony. First of all, who is this camera for? Is it my camera? Is it your camera? Well, it's in between. I absolutely love the camera for a lot of things, and I'm going to talk about that later, but mostly this is a camera, in my opinion, aimed at sports photographers, bird photographers, guys that really need speed, because this, boys and girls, is a speed monster. 20 frames a second if you use E-mount glass, and the autofocus is insane. This is a monster. If you miss a shot with this camera, don't blame the camera. It's your fault, because this camera, again, is a monster in speed. But do I need the speed? Do you need the speed? And do you have the money for this camera? Because this is the flagship from Sony. This is a really expensive camera. Now, one of the most heard complaints is actually price. And I don't agree with this. I think that Sony at the moment is one of the top brands. Now, when you compare this camera to, for example, a Canon 1DX, the Canon is way more expensive. But still, a lot of people have a problem with, yeah, but it's a Sony. And I think that has to change. At the moment, Sony, in my opinion, is literally on top of their game. They release new technology in every single camera, and the end results are absolutely amazing. So is this an expensive camera? Let me put it this way. It will put a dent in your budget. But expensive compared to the 1DX, I think it's pretty cheap, because it's actually just cheaper than the 1DX, and it outperforms the 1DX in many ways. So let's talk about a little bit about image quality. Now, this is a 24 megapixel camera. It's aimed at sports, nature, fast stuff. So you need a big buffer, 20 frames a second. It just has to go like it has to go really fast. I'm a studio shooter. I just love the higher resolution of, for example, the A7R II. That's 42 megapixels. This one is 24. You remember the time when we actually said that 16 megapixels was overkill and more than enough, you would never need more? You do have to realize that at that time we actually edited at monitors that were 1080p. Nowadays, mostly we edit on monitors that are higher resolutions and sometimes even 4 or 5K, and 8K is coming. So that means that if you zoom in on an image, you will actually see less of a zoom effect if you use 24 megapixels. For me, as a retoucher, I like that higher resolution. For you, as a sports photographer, let's be honest, 24 megapixels, you can print as big as you want. It's more than enough. And if you need that speed, well, you have to do sacrifices somewhere. Talking about sacrifices, let's talk a little bit about image quality. Now, there are actually two ways you can look at image quality. First, you can disassemble the camera and look at microscopic levels. If you overexpose by 8 stops, can you recover? Yeah, or you can just shoot. I'm more the second kind of guy. I just shoot with the camera. Did I like the image quality? Yes, I did. It is, well, maybe a tiny bit behind the A7R II in dynamic range, but in all honesty, we shot some images on the boat and in England, and I could recover highlights very, very easily. I could recover shadows very, very easily. We shot some strobe shots on ISO 100. I didn't see any bending in the images, even if I overexposed it in Capture One with 4 stops. So, in my opinion, the image quality is great. But that's for pictures. How about video? Well, this is a game changer for me. Now, you know that we do a daily vlog and we do instructional videos, right? So we use a lot of video. One of the things that I didn't like, and I still don't like, about the D6500 and the A7R II is actually the rolling shutter. But hey, it's something you have to live with. So that means that if we wave or if we move the camera, you can see that lines that should be straight are actually a little bit curved. This camera is a huge difference. You can still see it a little bit, but it's way, way better. On video, there's one thing I don't understand. Sony, why did you remove the S-Log settings? You have the perfect video camera. I don't get it. You need that S-Log settings. Is it really important? If you want to use it as a professional camera, it is. So you have a microphone in, you have a headphone out. They finally made it possible to use the shutter button to start video, because on the A7R II and the 6500 you have to use that little button. Now they also have a little button, but it's actually located next to the viewfinder. In my opinion, a way better spot. So why did you remove the S-Log options? I know why. Because you don't want this to be the perfect all-round camera. Hey, we got it. But maybe in a firmware upgrade, you're gonna add it. So for video, absolutely amazing camera, great dynamic range, less rolling shutter, and you can start by pressing the shutter button. So on video, great. The only thing I'm missing for the vlogs is that screen that you can actually swivel up, because now it's very difficult to see myself. And there we have a helicopter in the middle of the sea. That doesn't feel right. So anyway, let's continue about ergonomics. Now, the ergonomics of a camera is really important. You have to hold your camera, you walk around with it a lot, you operate it a lot, so ergonomics are important. The first A7R I got, wasn't that impressed. It was too small for me, and even with the grip, it just felt awkward, especially coming from an A99, which is a bigger camera. The A7R II, big change, especially with the grip, great camera, felt a lot better. The A9 feels much better. It's a little bit bigger, it just feels better, but again, I'm using a grip. The other thing about ergonomics on the A9 is the distance between the lens and the body is a little bit tighter. Some people on the internet complain about it. I can agree and I disagree. I got used to it about in 2 or 3 days, so I think it's something that you just have to go through. The other thing about ergonomics that I really like about the A9 is the new hard dial on top. It's in 2 parts. One is actually for setting your focus, So you can do single focus or continuous focus, etc. And the other one is for your speed, so high speed shooting, middle, low, or single shot. And of course your timer. So that's now on a hard dial, and I really like that because then you don't have to go into the menus. Of course, we already talked about using the shutter button to start your video. Is there more? Yes, the EVF. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's going from a television set to a big screen cinema. This is really a really good viewfinder. The EVF is bright, it's big, you see all the information. Also the screen on the back is a little bit brighter, and I really like that because with video we love to shoot outside and you have the sun, and a brighter screen really helps. Everything else, the camera just feels better, feels more professional, and it just responds very fast. Now, about the topic of autofocus. Now, autofocus is of course how fast your camera keeps up with your subject. One of the things that's really cool about the Sony is that the face recognition works like a charm. And there are other cameras out there that do that too, but I just love the way that it also operates in the Sony, of course. Now with the A99 you still use the translucent mirror. That meant you lost about 1/3 of an f-stop in lighting, and the autofocus was, let me put it this way, okay for what I did. And you could do sports with it and birds, but it was okay. The new cameras without translucent mirror, oh my, they're really fast with autofocus. And you have a huge amount of points. That means that you can move all the way over the frame without losing your focus. And the face recognition again works like a charm. Even if you use E-mount glass, you can use something called iFocus. And that really feels like voodoo. You just press the button and it finds the eyes. It's weird, but it works. Anyway, so that's the part of the autofocus. Now, of course, there's something else that's important. How do you track your subject? For example, a subject going from that side all the way to that side. The cool thing is that normally when you shoot with a camera that has a mirror and you take a picture, the mirror flips up and your shutter curtains works, right? And that means that you have something called mirror blackout. So you shoot, for example, 10 frames a second, and in between you constantly see this. So you don't see any image, you just see black. That also means that the camera has to, well, predict where that focus is going to be. So it has to think ahead, where's the subject going, where do I put my focus. The Sony, when you shoot, it's a really weird experience at first, for the very simple reason, there's no mirror blockout. You only see, let me put it this way, you see video. You only see video, and the only way that you know that you're shooting is actually because very faint you can hear the shutter going like ta 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 ta, because that's another part. It's a really silent camera. This is a camera that's not only for sport shooters or birders or anybody that needs speed. This is a camera that you could use on film sets. You don't need a blimp anymore, and that's a big box you put around your camera to silence the camera. This camera is very silent, and it's also of course part of the electronic shutter instead of the mechanic shutter. The cool thing is, you don't like electronic shutters? I don't know why, it's something from the past, but nowadays they're great. You just switch to the mechanical shutter, no problem at all. You have both options in the menu. Oh, talking about menus. So the menus, we hate Sony menus, don't we? We just hate them. They're cluttered, they're not logical, they're terrible. In all honesty, I never understood that complaint. Okay, it wasn't as easy as a Canon menu, but I also worked with Nikon, and of course I'm going to get flamed for this, but the Nikon menu I found complicated, and I couldn't find my way around it. But in all honesty, I shot for 2 days with an A10. I could find my way around the menu, no problem at all. It's something you have to get used to. The 6500, A7R2, I go to the menus really fast. And that's also because Sony, of course, has the option of the FN. So that means a fast menu. The A9 has a totally new menu. I'm fine with it. That's all I want to say about it. At first, I couldn't find anything. And after 1 or 2 days, I now know exactly where everything is. So it's something you have to get used to, but, well, great Sony, you listen to your clients, you have a new menu, and it's easy. Okay, let's talk about something else, battery life. also a point where a lot of you guys were not satisfied with Sony. And again, my opinion is different, and you could say I never complain, or I'm more like a practical guy. The old batteries, yes, they died very fast. I remember my days with the 5D Mark III, where you put a battery in and you actually forgot that your camera ran on batteries, because after 2 weeks you finally found out, oh yeah, my battery is gone. Okay, this is a little bit over the top, but you know what I mean. Those batteries were voodoo. The Sony batteries, yes, they went rather quickly, but we always carried 3 batteries, 2 in the grip and 1 in the bag. And in all honesty, even in New York, I never finished all 3 batteries. Now when you do a lot of video, the story changes, of course, but that's the problem with all cameras. Well, Sony listened and they gave us new batteries, and those batteries are very, very good. Actually, we filmed the whole vlog, we did photography with the camera, and I think one day I emptied 1 battery in the grip, and that's a huge improvement over the A7R II. On the A7R II, let me put it this way, I think the new batteries are twice as long, so yeah, that's a really good thing. The thing that I don't like is if you buy the A9 and you already have a 6500 or an A7R II, you have to get 2 chargers on a travel and of course different batteries. So I like to have all batteries the same, but I can totally live with this because these batteries are a lot better. And the final part is actually something that is very, very dear to me, and it has been a big frustration for me. Sony has this amazing app on board. It's called Smart Remote. What does Smart Remote do? It makes it possible to use your iPad, your iPhone or whatever to remote control your camera. But most of all to shoot tethered wirelessly. And the cool thing is, you can choose to send over the original file in JPEG or a 1 or 2 megapixel file. And that goes really fast, and for workshops that's awesome. You just press the shutter and 1 or 2 seconds later you already see the image, often even faster. Now the thing is that on the A7R II and on some other models the EVF was blocked out. So in other words, you had this amazing option, but you have to shoot on the back of the screen. You couldn't use your EVF. The A9, you don't need an app anymore, it's just in the menu. So you go into the menu, you go into your smart remote, or smart control actually it's now called, and the EVF keeps working. You just shoot and voila, you have your images on your device, and that's great. Another thing that I really like on the topic of tethering is now you don't need to use that flimsy USB connection. It's a disaster. Now you can just use, yes, a network cable. That's great. For a few reasons. 1, it's a way solider connection. 2, it's way cheaper. And 3, you can go much longer lengths. It's really good. So my total conclusion on the A9, keep watching. Okay, my final conclusion on the Sony A9. Well, if you're into sports, if you need fast action, if you need to track your subject with precise, with very, very accurate focus, this is a beast of a camera. And of course, there are always things, well, that some people don't like about Sony, like there isn't enough glass. That's absolutely ridiculous. You can use extension tubes and you can actually use A-mount glass on the E-mount body. You can use the Canon glass, you can use Sigma converters, you can use Sigma glass with E-mount or A-mount. There's so many options, there's so many choices. Without any doubt, Sony is a very versatile system when it comes to lenses, because there's always a converter that will make your glass work or give you an alternative. Pricing wise, we talked about it before, the 1DX is more expensive, and in my opinion the A9 has way better technology on board than the 1DX. So yeah, it takes a hit out of your budget, but it's still not a really expensive camera compared to the competition. For studio shooters, well, I really like the tethering solutions. I love that we finally have the EVF working. And well, if you bring out this camera with 42 megapixels Sony, I'm gonna get one, because I totally fell in love with the video quality and with the handling of the camera. Because for me, the video in this camera is absolutely amazing. The handling of the camera is stunning. The autofocus is insane. I really, really like this camera. but the 24 megapixels is for me the deal breaker. The 20 frames a second, I don't need it. I just need higher resolution. On the other hand, I'm incredibly happy that Sony gave me the option to test this camera out for a week. I could have had it before, but then I could only play with it for 1 or 2 hours. And I think to give you guys a real honest opinion, I need the camera a little bit longer. So I had to wait, so my review is a little bit later than the other ones. But I think, well, we went through A to Z with this camera. And overall, an awesome experience. Sony, congratulations, this is a really cool camera. Oh, and I almost forgot, they now also have 2 SD card readers. For all you guys out there that wanted double cards, it's now on the A9. Now, one more thing I have to add about the screen, it's now also a touch screen. It's not 100% touch, but you can, for example, touch focus, and you can, well, you use it for example, in video or photography to really make a nice, for example, dragging focus effect. So you can touch and you can literally drag your focus. Really nice. And we already knew that, of course, from the 6500, but now it's also on the A9.
Stars are in light, the we burn, we would know.
Wordt vriendelijk verzorgd door motorlosse starten als de auto voor u is weggereden. Dit wordt onderaan de kant als het u wil komen. Alle treinpassagiers worden vriendelijk verzorgd door achterin de passagiersverzamelruimte op plek 9. Wacht u alstublieft op verdere onderberichten.
Oh, by the way, when you do an extensive review, there's always something you forget. And in this case, you actually see what I forgot. The image stabilization, way better in the A9. And you can now also see it in the viewfinder. So you see a really stable image. Oh, this is going to be a disaster because we're all the way in the back. So that means that everybody has to go out. And there's always this one guy or girl or woman or whatever that thinks that they don't need to go to their car because, well, they have something to eat or whatever. And we're back home. So now I'm gonna edit the vlog and of course upload it for you guys. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our channel, leave comments below, and most of all, hit that like button. We really like that. The next Behind the Closed Doors will probably be on Saturday because now I'm taking 2 days off. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. Bye bye.